pony knowledge by. Oh, better. I got a place where winning ain't tough to do. You wanna be cool? Stable Duel. Your horse racing fantasy come true. But no, Stable Duel.
Download the Stable Duel app and play today.
Well, we are back with another edition of This Weekend in Stable Duel. I get so used to talking with Matt DeSantis and Barry Spears every week that the one time every now and then when we don't, it feels like I haven't talked to you guys in years, you know?
I know it, man. I know it. It's good to be back. We had a week off, and it's great to see you. I saw you were out. You had a great time out in Oklahoma. I saw you and Greg and everybody meeting up out there, so that was really nice. But
a lot of fun.
It's great to be back and a great weekend of racing.
So normally we do our This Weekend in Stable Duel show at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern time, 7 o'clock a.m. Pacific time, because most of the racing here in the U.S. will get started around their normal tracks will start, around 1 or 2 o'clock for whatever local post time is. So that gives us usually a bunch of time. But this weekend, Matt, this week, Stable Duel went across the pond. There actually are contests for Royal Ascot games, which are some of the most challenging games you will enter in Stable Duel games. We have 20, 25, 30 horse fields.
Yeah.
In some cases, I saw you joking about doing some homework the other day where it really feels like having to do some homework. But in most of these cases, you don't really have a problem building your lineup as far as spending up, because these are all horses that are all like 10-1 and in that range in these big fields. So very different approach when it comes to a Royal Ascot game versus like a Santa Anita or a Penn National game, right? Totally different.
Absolutely. Two totally different beasts. I mean, a Penn National, Santa Anita, you're trying to find like just a $5,000 horse that's usable. Whereas I think today there's a race at Ascot where the morning line favorite is 7-1. So, so you could go chalk and pick a favorite for $4,000 that's below your average cost of a horse for your $50,000 stable with 10 horses. So there's it's an interesting strategy. I mean, I think early in the week, a few of us who were playing really were focusing heavy on the stakes races that had fewer horses because it was a little easier to handicap. It was a little easier to get a handle on. And then really kind of, I don't want to say ignoring, but really picking and choosing our spots for these big 25, 30 horse fields. Today, you don't really have that option. I mean, all of these fields are pretty large. I think the smallest one's 12, but most of them are in the high teens, 20s, and potentially 30s. So it's a lot of fun because you can go and find a ton of value and a ton of really inexpensive plays underneath. And then something that we don't talk a lot about on here because we're in no chalk zone, but it's so inexpensive that you can go chalk in like 4, 5, 6 races in some cases and still afford to put your stable together. So it's a lot of really interesting strategy there. And I've enjoyed it a lot.
And we always have to give a shout out to our good friend, the sniper,
of course,
Barry Spears, who would be here with us. Barry is back to the streets where we begin. He's back to the roots at in the Chi-Town, walking around, and he said he was having some fun, drinking some Faderade, probably bumbling with a big grin on his face, hanging out with the old buddies. So keep an eye on our good friend, the sniper. Hope he has an awesome weekend. We're going to have an awesome weekend as we look at the schedule, Matt. So here's what you can play right now. What's cool is if you ever, are checking in the morning and you want to get some action, you can always just go to the Stable Duel app and see the games that they have loaded on the app for today, tomorrow, or you can just look at the contest schedule on the website, and then you can kind of plan your week and you can plan some of the games you want to. If you want to dive ahead and start handicapping, look at the options on Friday, starting in the morning right now in about 15, 20 minutes with Royal Ascot. Then you've got Gulfstream, Hawthorne, Penn National, a free ride, and Santa Anita. It's closing weekend. Santa Anita has some really good races there this weekend, Matt, because I was sort of telling you the way that the schedule plays out in California, in particular in Southern California. There's racing this weekend, and then I think Los Alamitos has like 5 days of racing scheduled between now and when Del Mar opens. There's like a month where there's only about, 5 racing days in Southern California, and none of those have turf racing.
Yep.
So a lot of these horses know that, and their connections know, if you're in Southern California, you better race this weekend, or else you ain't getting a chance to run for another 4 weeks, really.
Yeah,
So-
no, the field sizes are great out there. There's a lot of races. It's not an 8-race card or anything like that. So you're getting a lot of races and a lot of horses in those races, and
easier to build.
much easier to build.
Than
Much
normal.
easier to build. Yes.
So that's nice. So we'll take a look at a lot of the different games coming up this weekend. Saturday, back to Royal Ascot. Monmouth, we're going to dive into a couple of the Monmouth stakes. 4 stakes races to end the card, 3 of them graded stakes. And the only one that's not a graded stakes is the Pegasus. And that's actually a prep for the Haskell.
Yep.
So very, very good late pick 4 sequence. I actually had Samantha Perry, who does the on-track handicapping and analysis on That's What G Said podcast, to help me preview those 4 stakes races. So if you need a little extra help talking some Monmouth, Samantha does a great job. She joined me on my show for about 30 minutes talking all about those. Gulfstream and Santa Anita both have more options on Saturday than on Sunday. Gulfstream, Lone Star, it's closing day at Santa Anita, and then Hawthorne, and then into Monday, Parks, Indiana Grand. And if you want to play the Assiniboia Downs games, you better be stepping your game up, because I know Mr. DeSantis is going to –
my dad –
he's going to be tough in those Assiniboia Downs games. That's where he lives now.
He is completely out of control. He loves the Assiniboia, and to the point where he emails the people. He emails the people out of Assiniboia, and he gets like the sheets before I do. And
that's so great.
He loves it up there. And those are fun games. I think they're really fun. 7 races. They're all sprints. It's just what my dad loves about it is you go from like 38th to 4th back to like 28th in the span of 3 races. You're all over the place. And there's a lot of movement because there's only 7 races. A lot of times, you're doubling up in a lot of races, obviously. And it also, I think for beginners, is actually a lot of fun because it's easy to kind of pick winners at Assiniboia because you have to double up in so many races. You're going to pick a winner in all likelihood in 3 or 4 races. Like, you look at those final scores, they're always in the 350, 400, 450 range. People are doing really well there in terms of scores. So it's a nice confidence builder, I think, for beginners.
Maddie, we are about 20 minutes away from the start of a Royal Ascot contest. So let's get in. I've got a couple that I want to look at for today. We want to remind everyone. So if you're just tuning in right now and you want to get some action, play along today at Royal Ascot in just about 20 minutes. So get your entries in. Tell us today, where are you looking at Royal Ascot for a play to give out?
2, 3, 4.
Okay, awesome. So navigate us in race number 2. I'll pull up the past performances over at Daily Racing Form, which are nice even for Royal Ascot. You can get the past performances there, and you can dive in and see what some of these horses have done recently. I'm looking like a stable duel. I've got like a stable duel tourist thing going on today. I've got my hat. I've got everything rocking. Yeah. I actually just need my fanny pack, and then I would have everything complete. So
I love it. I love it.
Race 2 for you, right?
Yeah, race 2, the Grade 1 Commonwealth Cup Stakes, 20 horse field, 6 furlongs, obviously on the turf. And so I have 2 plays, but I'm going to give them quickly, for people. So one is kind of almost a chalky play, but it's still a good price. And the other is a little bit more of a long shot. So the first one we'll go to is the number 7, Go Bears Go, which is going off at 7-1 on the morning line, $4,000. This is actually, I want to say, maybe the second or third choice in this race. But Go Bears Go is a really nice horse. I was impressed by him last time out, or I shouldn't say last time out, but last time in North America when he ran second at the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. That was a really strong effort. Really liked that performance. Comes back as a 3-year-old, wins that first time out. Last time out runs third after a little bit of a layoff. And so I think you can toss that last race. He stumbled really badly at the start, still managed to kind of run on for 4th. But I just think this is a horse that just keeps getting faster too. If you look at those time form rating figures, he made that jump that you like to see from 2 years old to 3 years old. He gets faster, so I think that's a real positive there. He ran close. He ran very close behind the favorite, Perfect Power, twice. So he's right there, and that was really during his juvenile campaign. And he's only gotten faster since then. So at 7-1, $4,000, Go Bears Go makes a lot of sense for me. The other one that I'll give you in this race very quickly is Slipstream, the American horse at the number 12. And these racing forms are a little crazy because they're not quite lined up with post positions all the time. So, but I'll just the Slipstream 12-1 Christophe Clement runner gets Joel Rosario on the turf sprint. I have much more faith in Mr. Rosario than Mr. Ortiz Jr. And so this is a really strong American runner. I think you could say the only time this horse did not run well was when he stretched out to a mile and did 2 turns. And I think that's understandable. And so now back to sprinting where he's got a very strong record. Like I said, Rosario on the turf is one of the best in the world. The other nice thing I like is, again, just like with Go Bears Go, you saw that progression from 2 to 3 in terms of speed figures. So filled out, got a little stronger, got a little bigger. That's always something I like to look at. So he got that one off the bench, after about a 6-month layoff last time out. And now 12-1. I mean, this is the beauty of Ascot, right?
Yeah.
When are you going to get 12-1 on Slipstream in North America?
No,
never. I mean, you're going to be getting
3 to 1. He was 10-1 in the Breeders' Cup.
Exactly. You're going to be getting 2-1. 3-1 at best here in the States. And so to get a horse like Slipstream at 12-1 for $750, I think a great value play in the second.
A couple plays to look at in race number 2 for Matt. I've got 4 and 7. You said you've got 2, 3, 4?
Yeah, I got 2, 3, 4.
Okay, cool. What's great about the past performances that we're looking at here, DRF, daily racing form, past performances. I always go to the formulator PPs. A lot of people like the classic basic ones, which are fine. But what's nice is that when we're looking and you want to find information, charts, race replays for horses that have been in America, for these horses that have run internationally, you won't be able to pull up a race replay with one click. But if they've run here in the US anywhere, you can watch those replays. You can look through the charts. Where are we looking in race number 3? We'll go a mile and a half in here.
Yeah, we'll go to the number 13, Contact, who is 10-1 on the morning line, only going to cost you $1,000. This is, like you said, Duke of Edinburgh handicap, mile and a half, 12 furlongs on the turf. And what I really like about Contact is he's come back really well as a 4-year-old and really shown some nice progression from 3 to 4. The other thing I like about him is he can do the distance. He loves the mile and a half. There are some horses in this race that are stretching out for the first time, going from 1.25 miles to 1.5 miles, or 1 3/8 to 1.5 miles. Now, I know that's not as big of a deal over in the United Kingdom because a lot of these horses are bred for distance, but this is a horse that obviously is bred for, in particular, Contact is bred for distance. 3 for 5, winning at 12 furlongs. The favorite in this race is a horse, Just Fine, who's going off at 9-2. And that's kind of my feeling about him. He's just fine. He's not a great horse, but he's a fine horse. But he's only 2 for 9 winning. And he finished 3rd at 12 furlongs. So there are some things that I'm a little worried about. But I just think, like I said, Contact has kind of that nice progression that you like to see, continually stepping up, running in these level races, basically running in these kind of high grade handicaps. And like I said, that progression from 3 to 4 is what really stands out. This horse keeps getting faster the last few times out, likes the distance. For $1,000, definitely like playing Contact in race 3 at Royal Ascot.
Also a movie starring Jodie Foster and Matthew McConaughey, a very early Matthew McConaughey. I remember, seeing that movie, and there was like a lot of buzz for it. Do you remember when it came out?
I remember there was a lot of buzz,
because it was like this huge, like, alien, we're gonna make contact, and then there's this like very little. It was like so boring. I remember seeing it was like 3 hours of just like dialogue and setup for like this very little moment of like, oh cool, we were out in outer space, or we finally like had some contact. Right.
Yeah. No, it was a very forgettable movie. Yeah, with two really great movie stars who I like a lot.
Incredible movie stars, and I will say, shout out to Matthew McConaughey, who has like in the last like 10 years or so, the guy was, like not a joke, but like he was a laughable comedy character, really.
Yeah.
People sort of thought of him as like, a rom-com guy and some guy who's a comedy character. He flipped the way like he's kind of thought of as an actor. And then even recently with his like recent speeches and stuff, like the way people think of him overall, good dude. All right.
Good
All
dude.
right. All right.
All right.
I don't know if you've ever heard Matt Damon does an impersonation of him on when like, cause they're good friends, so when he goes on the late night shows, they'll always ask Matt Damon to do it. And he was sitting there, he goes, I'm sitting down here wondering, like, why don't we take our shirts off? I think all of us, it'd be a lot better if we all just took our shirts off, and he'll do a really, it sounds exactly like him. So shout out Matty Damon and Matty McConaughey, a couple of the Matts out there as we move along to race number 4. So we both got a couple horses in race number 4. You still got about 10 or 15 minutes to get your stable duel contest in at Royal Ascot. So make sure you do so. And this was a race I wanted to at least mention and bring up, Matt, even if we didn't have plays, because there are a couple really live American horses in here who feel like they have a legitimate shot to win or, run really, really well. They're right next door to each other too, in Pizza Bianca and Spenderella. Pizza Bianca for Bobby Flay, who recently won the Hilltop. Pizza Bianca won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf. And then you've got Spenderella right next door. She's 3 for 3. She's undefeated. And while she may not be quite as accomplished in, being a Breeders' Cup winner, I actually like her a little bit better of the two in here. I think the one real equalizer when it comes to international racing for horses from the U.S. is speed. Yeah. And horses that have speed, can be forwardly placed, can kind of stay out of trouble, and can get in front of the deep kickers and the deep closers. And so I actually think a horse like Spenderella, where she's not been like a run them off their feet speed demon type, but she seems she's just so good. I think they have her right there on the lead and just getting her in front. So I expect her to be forwardly placed in here and maybe out of some of the trouble. And what's nice is, she's 10-1. She's only going to cost you $1,000 in your stable dual lineup. I prefer her of them, and she was going to be one of the horses I gave out as a good horse to use.
Same here. That's exactly who I had my notes on in race 4 and I prefer her over Pizza Bianca as well. The speed figures just, don't really, the math does not add up for Pizza Bianca. I think she's benefited from some just incredible trips. And no disrespect to her. She's a perfectly good horse. I was impressed by her at Pimlico. She made up a ton of ground, but that race did not come back particularly strong. I also like Spenderella. I'll give you one other reason. Look at the jockey. Look at what Graham Motion does. Graham Motion, who, great trainer, he goes overseas. Does he bring a jockey like Jose Ortiz, like Joel Rosario, like Irad Ortiz Jr. over? No. What he does is he goes out and gets the best damn British jock out there in William Buick. And so you have William Buick running Pizza Bianca or Spenderella, I should say. And William Buick, if anybody's been paying to Royal Ascot this week, has been having a week. He's been running extraordinarily well at Ascot. So I really like the fact that they went international and picked up one of the top international jocks who knows how to run these British turf races and knows how to just handle that distance and knows how to handle everything. So I just, all in on Spenderella at 10-1. Just, I think, a great value play. And again, like we've talked about before with Slipstream, you're never going to get this value on these horses any other time they run in North America. So grab them now when you can.
Sorry, I was just firing off at someone who gave me some crap about being a wrestling fan. It's like, come on, Matt. It's like, come on. Now it's like in this day and age, I just joke. We're sitting here in a niche sport talking about Royal Ascot horse racing at 6:00 in the morning for me on the West Coast. And somebody's telling me like, it's weird to like wrestling. Come on. Like in this day and age, everybody loves comics, Star Wars, Marvel. We've all got our own worlds of stuff where we live in, to each their own.
Absolutely.
That's what's so great about this world. You know what? Like, and I was joking because I tweeted, there was big news in the wrestling world this morning. Like Vince McMahon apparently is stepping down. And, I've always, you've heard us talk about it throughout our shows, but for me, you get the athleticism of like some of the best athletes in the world. You get the drama of some of the better scripted shows in the world, right? It's no different to me than anything I watch on Netflix or HBO that's just predetermined. So I always got to dig my heels in. Get off my wrestling lawn. Don't tell me I can't watch wrestling as we move along. I got one more play at Royal Ascot, and we encourage all of you to get involved. You have less than 10 minutes before race number 1, just 9 minutes to post. Huge field here. But the horse who I like is the number 20 in this field. Yeah, and it's Sterling Knight.
Oh, yeah.
So Sterling Knight, if you just sort of look at the conditions of this race, so they're going to be going 5 furlongs on the turf here. And I think if you just like look at a lot of Sterling Knight's form in just a really basic handicapping sense, right? Sterling Knight's best races have been sprinting on the turf. If you look at the races on the synthetic, they're fine, but noticeably a better horse sprinting on the turf. He's going to go 3rd start of the form cycle. He just has a recent win at Ascot, so he knows this racetrack. He's proven in big fields, like his last 2 races, he beat a field of 18, and he had some traffic a little bit. In both of his last 2 starts, he's been in fields with double-digit runners, having to deal with some traffic. I think Sterling Knight is very interesting. Another one who's 10-1, so won't cost you a whole lot. Just need this horse to pick up, a check and a placing here for you, and you'll feel really good about the lineup that you built, if so, because you'll have plenty of opportunities with this horse, with Spenderella, 2 of them at just 1,000, then you really can spend up in 1 or 2 of the shorter races. So Sterling Knight is another play in here for me today, Matty.
I like it. Yeah, I know. I mean, we had some people who follow the show and follow each of us who made a comment. There's just value all over the place on this card.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the beauty is, I mean, sometimes, when Barry and you and me give out picks, it's like we identify like maybe sometimes the only value on a card. And here you could go 15 different directions, and I wouldn't tell you that you're wrong in a lot of these races. And, there's just a lot of value to be had, especially when you're looking at some of these horses early on. We didn't touch race 1, but that's one with like the juveniles. Like, good luck. You can go in a lot of different directions there because these horses are just starting to kind of mature. So who knows what you're going to end up getting out of that group. So always a lot of opportunities in these huge fields at Ascot. But good luck to everyone. I have my you can't really see, but my shirt has little tiny foxes on it because,
Nice.
fox hunting is kind of a big thing over there.
Like that.
And then I actually got this hat from a fox hunting company here in Northern Virginia, because Northern Virginia is kind of the North American epicenter for mounted fox hunting. So always try to look jaunty for the Brits. And
Well
so,
done.
yeah.
Well played. So that stupid British accent, was that supposed to be, you talk like you're from Landy? That's supposed to be me. Yeah. Sorry about that. Shout out for getting Sarah Marshall there and Jonah Hill. Okay, so that's Ascot.
Yeah.
Everybody's got just a few minutes to get involved. Good luck to you today as we turn the page and start talking a little bit more about other Friday racing. So you've got a couple. We got Gulfstream.
Yep.
I've got Santa Anita. And you have just Gulfstream.
I have Gulfstream and then one at Penn National.
Cool. So let's go Gulfstream, Santa Anita, then we'll hit Penn
Sounds
for
good.
Friday. So where do you want to head for Gulfstream Park for Friday, Matt? Gotta give Barry some love, right?
That's why we got. That's why you said, Matthew, where do you want to go? And I said, listen, I got to go to Gulfstream. I got to give love to the sniper because that's what he always holds it down at Gulfstream. So I hope that I can can do him proud this week with a couple of picks. But we will go right to the very first race at Gulfstream. So. It's a $20,000 claimer, non-winners of 3. That's a mile 70 on the synthetic for fillies and mares. And I will go to the number 3 horse, Capstone Girl. Capstone Girl is, like I said, number 3 horse, 8-1 for $3,000. And a couple of reasons why I like her. One is one of her best efforts was on the synthetic, so I know she'll be able to handle the surface. That's not a problem. Went to a new trainer a couple races back, and that trainer kind of moved her up, I think, maybe a level or two too high. Kind of went from the claiming circuit to kind of optional claiming starter allowance, and kind of was a little bit of a dud there. Ran 2 of her worst efforts. Now is coming back to this kind of claiming 20,000 level. And if you look at how she runs against this level of competition, always very strong. First, seconds, thirds. I mean, never anything worse than that. So very capable at this level to run well. I also gets the blinkers on. This horse should be engaged, which I like, because when you look at this horse's best efforts, typically they come on the lead or near the lead. So getting those blinkers, getting this horse out a little bit quicker, a little bit more forwardly placed, I think is really good. There's not a ton of speed in this race. I think Jazzy T and Crystal Coast are two of the other favorites. They have a little bit of versatility. They can go to the lead, but they can also sit. So I don't think anybody's a need the lead type of horse. And so I think Capstone Girl just makes a lot of sense for me in this spot. Really, like I said, if you look at that, granted it's just one race, but if you look at that speed figure on synthetic, really very comparable to where the favorites are. You're getting a little bit more value though at 8-1 on the morning line. Like I said, it's only going to cost you $3,000 in stable duel. So I like the class drop. I like the surface switch. I like the blinkers. I think there's a lot going on here that I like with Capstone Girl. I think she's going to turn in a nice effort today in race 1.
Okay, I just got in under the wire at Ascot. So last chance to get your last chance to get your games in. You can play for just $5. There's a small. So that's the thing. If you're worried and you're going, these are big fields, I don't know a whole lot about these horses, right? I don't want to spend up and lose a ton. It's $6 game today. Yeah. One of the games. So if you want to play in one of the smaller games, go ahead and you'll have fun. You can set yourself up where you're going to have action starting in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
All day long. Like the Royal Ascot races will roll right into Gulfstream over here for Matt. Yeah. They'll roll right into Santa Anita. Then they'll roll right into Penn National later on. You'll be set all day, all night.
Absolutely. If you want to avoid your family on this lovely Friday, you can do that. Like you could just be like, listen, honey, I have to follow horse racing today.
Yep.
And
sorry.
And the great part is I'm going down to visit my mom this weekend, and my mom is a bit of a royalist. She loves the Royals, and she loves, well, I shouldn't say she loves it. She likes Queen Elizabeth. She's not so big a fan of the kids, but she likes Queen Elizabeth.
The pomp and circumstance.
Exactly. And so she was very disappointed yesterday when I told her the Queen's 2 horses came up short. Saga coming up just a nose short in the one race, and then Reach for the Moon. The overwhelming favorite was a huge favorite in Stable Duel. I think cost $14,000 in Stable Duel.
Yeah.
And Frankie Dettori just could not get by Claymore, which was my pick to win, actually. So that worked out nicely for me, but it was still a disappointing day for the Queen. So even my mom's excited, and she's like, "Can we watch this together on Saturday morning?"
Nice.
I was like, "Absolutely, we can watch this together on Saturday morning."
Love that.
Yeah,
awesome.
So it should be fun.
Okay. Do you have another one at Gulfstream? Or was that awesome?
Yeah. No, we'll go from the first race to the last race. We'll go to race 10.
Bookend it.
Bookend it. And this is the bailout play. And this is a big long shot. So a lot of times we give out, 8-1, 10-1, maybe 12-1. I'm going to give you a 20-1 horse here, which is the number 9 Mailbox Money. This is only going to cost you $250 on Stable Duel. And so it is, like I said, inexpensive horse in that 10th race, and it is in the number 9.
There we go. I was in race number 9. That's why.
Yeah. It's horse number 9 in race number 10.
There.
And so Mailbox Money, and just to give people a preface, this is a $25,000 maiden claimer, 5 furlongs on the synthetic. So this is a tried and true race to attack that we like to go on Stable Duel with these maiden claimers. Here's what I like about Mailbox Money. You can't get much worse than those first 2 starts.
No.
They're abysmal. They're absolutely abysmal. But here's what happens, though. First of all, first trip, super wide, green. You can kind of toss it. It's on dirt. Second comes back on the synthetic, acted up in the gate, terrible start. There's kind of legitimate excuses for this. But then something happens. Goes to a new barn. Goes to Aubrey Mara, who has done just a dynamite job at Gulfstream Park this season, winning at 35% clip at Gulfstream this season. More importantly, 71% in the money at Gulfstream. So about as sure of a bet as you're going to find. She's winning 22% on the claiming circuit. So I just, there's so much to like about what she's doing here. Also, what does she do? She gets the blinkers on. I absolutely love that for this horse, especially with how fractious this horse was in the gate
and
last
no
time.
focus so far in those
lack
two.
of focus. Yep. And get this horse out, get this horse aggressive, get this horse out there in the lead. So I think there's just a lot of positives here. Also, if you look, the last workout this horse had was a gate work, which I actually like, considering the issues that this horse had coming out of the gate and being in the gate. Just getting this horse more familiar with the gate process, the loading process, calming this horse down a little bit, like that. And then also worked out on the synthetic. And that's something that I always like, is when horses work on the surface that they're going to run on. So I just think 20-1 is a huge price. I really like this horse, though. I think there's something to like here with the barn change, the equipment change. I think Mailbox Money is going to run well at 20-1. Only cost you $250.
I had Mishawish in the dawn this day back here at like 9-2. This was a big day for Gino that day. I got a fond place in my heart for old Mishawish there. So really made me smile seeing the sun in Mailbox Money here. So that's Mailbox Money, 20-1, not going to cost you much to have to use in your stable dual lineup. So that's a good play there from Matt for Friday. As we shift on over from Gulfstream, talk a little Santa Anita. I've got two Santa Anita Friday plays, as it is closing weekend at Santa Anita, and there isn't going to be a whole lot of racing in California for the next month. Golden Gate just closed their meeting, so the fairs are going to start up soon. Southern California will only have racing at Los Alamitos, I think, for 2 weeks over the next 4 to 5. So there's going to be a little bit of a break, which is really needed, Matt.
Yeah.
We were just joking about wrestling a little while ago. I think only wrestling and horse racing are the things that like go year around and really have like no off season, right?
It's true. And people, recently we've engaged in this debate online about, small field sizes and things like that. And part of it, I mean, there's a foal issue, which is a separate discussion. But one of the issues is there's just too many damn graded stakes races in a lot of cases.
You can all spread out.
Yeah, you need to spread these out a little bit. You need to give these horses time to rest, especially if you are having a horse shortage, which is, which a lot of people, is happening. And, you just can't keep piling these up all the time. So having a little bit of a rest is a good thing. And it's a good thing on the back end here, because everybody's going to want to run this weekend at Santa Anita to get their horse one last run in before there's that break and before they can come back at Del Mar. So, love it. Gino, I know you always find value out in the West Coast, so I can't wait to hear what you got.
So in race number 4, we bottom level maiden $20,000 claimers, right? So we're not talking about, monsters in here. I'm looking at the number 2 Economical, who has run twice. Both of those races have been sprints. Let's just take a look at the starts for his 2 races. So he's the number 7 in this race that we're about to watch right here. So great about daily racing form. You can pull up the replays like this in one click, and then boom, you're right here. So he's the 7. Let's watch on the head on. Gets just destroyed on both sides right out. And then after, again, what ends up happening? You get hit, and then you're sort of like trying to get your feet in your footing under you, and then you get squeezed again because everybody comes together, and now all of a sudden you're like scrubbing and you're shoving. And so this was first time out of the box. So that's just not an easy, your first time ever, you get all set up, you get all trained, you come out there and you get slammed out of the gate right off the bat. Then you come back in your second start on May the 28th. And we're looking at Economical, who is the 8 this day. And we can watch the head on again and see this horse again really had no shot. So he's the 8 here, not the 7, but same thing.
Yeah, Jesus.
It's like slammed on both sides out of the gate, and then it just sort of like takes a while to get your footing going. He actually recovered pretty well in this race, though, because after that slow start, he comes right back, and he's, so he's the 8 in here, slow start, but he comes right back, and he's in striking range.
Yeah.
So he gets caught up like in between in this clump of horses in the second flight. So now he's like 4 wide in the second flight. instead of maybe being too deep, like pressing the 6.
Yeah.
Right. If he doesn't get bumped around there and shoved and he's back, he's probably a lot closer pressing this horse. He's right up into contention, but then he fades because it's just a tough trip, wide like that. And you're chasing in the second flight. So while Economical doesn't have much finish in his 2 races, I think he has legitimate excuses for not being able to get out of the gate in both of them. He just got hammered. Now he's going to stretch out to a mile and a 16th. This horse to the inside has a little bit of speed here. Other than that, Today Matters isn't really fast. Quincy hasn't shown any speed. Corsica Flavor isn't really fast. Mongolian Kingdom isn't really fast. Lookout Point isn't really fast. Neither is Asphalt Andy. Neither is Mongolian Bonus. There are like 7 other horses in this race that really aren't quick. He should at very least be forwardly placed in here.
Yep.
What's nice is that his dam, this is a bottom level maiden claimer. We're not looking for monster pedigrees, but the dam was fine. She raced 3 times. She won one of those 3. She hit the board in the other 2. And look what she's produced for, again, a bottom level maiden horse. Tis a Master, multiple winner, 5-time winner. You've got Seeking B, multiple winner, has one going long. You've got B's Wildcat, who's a winner. Tis a Unicorn, who's a winner. B's Bench, who's a winner. This dam has produced 5 foals that have raced more than one time. All 5 of them have won. The only one that didn't is Miss Beast Mode, who's only raced one time. When horses only have like 1 or 2 races, it's hard to even use that as a sample size. It's such a small sample size to gauge. Now, this is not a bad pedigree for like a low level horse whose all of their siblings are winners and 3 of them have one going long. I think he's got the right to show some improvement going long. He's got to be forwardly placed and get aggressive. And, Tyler Bays has quietly been having a really nice last few months. Shout out to Jack Carava. I just did an interview with Cindy Carava. She's a full service realtor. Jack, who was a former trainer. Cindy's been one of the sponsors of my show for a long time. We just talked, and Jack actually is Tyler Bays' agent now. He's a jockey agent after he stopped training. So he's been doing a really great job with him. Tyler's got some live mounts this weekend, and he's got a chance to put Economical, I think, right on the front end here, Matt. I'd love to see him either on the lead or sitting right behind King Rob and, pick up some pieces here in a race where everyone else is going to be way out of it early on.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. King Rob's going to have to shoot out of there because he's got the inside post. And so, that actually, I think might work nicely for Economical to just kind of follow him out. So a lot to like there, and you're right, a strong pedigree underneath. That's a nice pedigree for a horse in a low level maiden claimer. So I like that a lot. That's a nice play.
Let's get to one more at Santa Anita for Friday. I'm going to go to race number 9, and we're going to take a look in here at the number 6, Forgiving Spirit, who debuted on the dirt, and that was against Maiden Specials in August. I think we can just put a line right through. This horse actually was in the Peter Miller barn and got action, was favored, showed a little bit of early interest, and then just, packed it in, but came back on April the 30th off a long layoff, won going wire to wire, going 6 furlongs. And then last time out, tried the downhill on May the 28th, going 6.5, and was the number 7. Forgiving Spirit here. Let's actually probably watch the head on. I think it's a little bit easier. Oh, wait, I guess we don't have a head on this one. So the number 7 here, slow start, misses the break, and then rushes up. Right? Going 6.5. Then is here like on the lead, but the slow start, rush up, going 6.5 compared to this horse who was a winner going the flat 6. I just think the running style now, having to duel a little bit. 6.5, I thought was just a little bit too far for him, especially after the slow start and then having to rush. Now he cuts back to 6 furlongs, 3rd start off the bench in 3rd start of the form cycle. I just think this is a better layout for him than the 6.5. So I expect him to run a good race here. And because of that poor finish, he was 3-1 in that race. He's 8-1 here. He probably should be more like a 4 or 5-1 shot in this race.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. He's going to get bet down, I think, and so yeah, you find 8 to 1. That's a nice value on a horse that I like. You said is there's something to like there, and you could absolutely, one of the things. It's interesting. I think the more you and I talk, one of the things I picked up from you is just drawing lines through races,
Being forgiving,
and being
right?
forgiving, drawing lines through races, and also going through line by line and explaining, okay, this is logical. I understand
What
why this
happened
horse.
here,
I
right?
understand why this horse ran the way it did. I think that's something that just gets passed over too often. People look at a speed figure or a place finish, and they just go, "Oh, this horse, hasn't finished better than fifth in 3 starts." And it's like, well,
There's a
there's been
story.
issues with each of those 3 starts. Like, let's talk about that. And,
Mhm.
and there's something to like.
And
still
you know
there.
what?
So,
Sometimes there's not.
right.
Right. And when you go,
Yeah,
sometimes
you
you go through and
toss.
you're like,
Yeah.
nope, they just weren't very good. And then you know
Right.
what? We got to see something more for them
Yeah.
or have an excuse or a reason. I always joke, right? I, as a handicapper, call them reasons why. My girlfriend calls them excuses when I tell her things, right? So it's like, no, that's a reason, right? It's not an excuse, So I guess it's just how you
Exactly.
frame it. But anyway,
Exactly.
if you can be forgiving with a horse, like, how about that? Forgiving spirit. So
I
you
love
got
it.
to
I love it.
be extremely forgiving there. And that's Friday over at Santa Anita. I know we have another Friday track to take a look at. You've got some thoughts at Penn National.
Yeah, Penn National, kind
Yeah.
of a big day. There's two stakes races on the card there, and so at Penn National, there's a free contest. So if you're new to Stable Duel, if you maybe just got sucked in with the Royal Ascot stuff and want to play a little bit more but don't want to spend any money, or you haven't downloaded any, put any money in your account, you can still play on Penn National tonight for free, and so. We'll go straight to the kind of headlining race 6,
Cool.
Chocolate Town, which is for 3-year-olds and up, 6 furlongs on the dirt. And I'm going to go with the number 7, Exculpatory. And this is a horse that is going off at 12 to 1, only going to cost you $750. And before we kind of get into Exculpatory and why I like this horse in the spot, first thing, there's only 8 races on this card. You're going to have to double up in multiple races. Okay. The other thing is, Exculpatory is such an inexpensive horse that if you sit there and look and go, listen, I really like NY Traffic. I know some people get upset when they call them New York Traffic,
Right,
but
yeah.
whatever. But NY Traffic, if you really like Baron in this race, by all
You can
means,
double
spend
up.
up. Exactly. Spend up on them and
Yeah.
use Exculpatory underneath. And that's no problem at all.
No.
And so I just think this is a horse. Maybe Exculpatory needs one off the shelf. Hasn't raced since October, but the new trainer has been running bullets with this horse and working out. This horse should be fit, should be ready to fire. Exculpatory is 4 for 7 winning in his career, has won races like this, basically a kind of a secondary track stakes race. Did this at Charlestown last year. Actually, I was at that race last August at Charlestown. Is where I met Bree Mott for the first time and played my first Stable Duel
nice.
contest that night. Actually.
Awesome.
So,
Awesome.
but he's got that ability, and if you look those speed figures before he goes to the ACAC, which was probably a little too much and a little too far. Goes a mile, steps up in class pretty significantly. Now we're going back to kind of where I think Exculpatory is best. Running in these non-graded stakes races, kind of secondary tracks, Charlestown, a Penn National, ran at Colonial before this, just really nice tracks. But, you're not going to Churchill, you're not going to Santa Anita and running against maybe some of the best. And so from a speed figure standpoint, posted that 100 buyers, which is right there with anybody else. So has the speed, it's cutting back down in distance to 6 furlongs. I just feel like this is a good spot. And he's got Carol Cedeno on the mount, 35% winning rate at Penn National. And I'd be remiss if I did not give a shout out to Megan and Matt Halter, who are just great Twitter follows and great people.
Awesome.
And Matt is is the president, not a president. He is the president of the Carol Cedeno fan club. And so, I when I saw that Carol was on Exculpatory, I was like, oh, I gotta use this and gotta give a shout out to Matt Halter and his mom Megan. But they're great. If you don't follow them, you really should, because it's a lot of really great feel good stuff on Twitter.
I had
a
great interaction with Megan like about 2 weeks ago, which is just exactly how social media or just like discourse is supposed to be. Like, she posted something and we were like sort of on not opposite sides, but like we had just different thoughts on the comment. And it was like such a good, respectful back and forth to where I explained what I was saying. And she was like, you're right. I actually might have been a little bit confusing with the comment that I posted. I agree with you. And it was like, whoa, it was just like so refreshing in this day and age to have like an actual back and forth that was like respectful with discourse, to where I think both people came out feeling like we are totally on the same side with what we were saying. And we were just great people who love the races and who are really fun to interact with and love horse racing. So I'm glad you gave them a little bit of a shout out there as we turn the page. So we're turning the page to Saturday now. I think you've got a couple for Royal Ascot. We both are going to look at Monmouth, and then I'll dish out a few for Santa Anita for Saturday. So we've got 3 different racetracks we're going to take a look at. Matt, tell us where you want to go bright and early Saturday morning for Royal Ascot.
Yeah, so bright and early, we'll go to race. So I have race 3, and I actually have 2 different plays in race 3.
Cool.
And so, which is the Grade 2 Hardwick Stakes. It's a 1.5 miles, at 12 furlongs. And this is one where I feel like this is a race where if people maybe are playing Stable Duel for the first time, this is a race where it goes to something you and I always talk about, which is that there is a massive favorite in this race, in the form of Hurricane Lane, who is going off at 3 to 5 odds and is going to cost you $12,000 on Stable Duel. Now, in Ascot, maybe you can get away with this because there's enough good value underneath it. Maybe you can get away with spending $12,000. But I always like to go back to ROI. This horse is going to cost you 24% of your budget, okay? 24% of the points necessary to win, which is about 350 points typically you need in a winning stable. 24% of that is what, about 83 points. This horse is not going to get you 83 points. That's like statistically impossible for this horse to get you 83 points. So therefore, I'm going to look underneath and I'm going to give you kind of a mid-level play and a long shot play. So my mid-level play is Broom, the number 2 horse, who is only going to cost you $6,000 and at 5 to 1. And I feel like is probably the next most logical winner in this race. So Broom has, you cannot argue that Broom has gone against the very best in the world.
Absolutely.
Ebir, Love, Audiyar has gone against the best. He has run in the best races in the world. The Breeders' Cup Turf, the Arc, the King George VI Queen Elizabeth Stakes. He has gone up against the very best. And so this horse is battle tested. Aidan O'Brien, Ryan Moore having a week, as you would expect at Ascot. Ryan Moore is just running them off their feet, running really, really well this week. I actually kind of, edged out Frankie Dettori in consecutive races yesterday and kind of, really has been running at the top of his form. Now, Broom, you could argue, may have peaked last spring and early summer, that he was turning in some of his best performances then. But last time out was coming off a 6-month layoff and went straight into a Grade 1, too. I mean, it wasn't like this horse was trying to dip his toe into the pool and kind of ease back into things. Went straight to a Grade 1 after this long of a layoff. Interestingly enough, if you looked, he finished behind State of Rest in that last race out. State of Rest, of course, came back just yesterday on Thursday and won a handicap at Royal Ascot. So that race has come back really nice, that Grade 1. So I don't think there's any harm in him finishing a little behind in that race. I just think this is a Grade 2. Honestly, it's almost a drop down in class for him at this point.
It is.
And,
it is.
And so I just think at 5 to 1 for $6,000, I'd much rather take a shot with Broom than spending $12,000, twice as much on Hurricane Lane. So
and he's like, if you're just looking at the time form ratings, which is, like their speed figures, he's a little bit lower, but it's not as if he's completely dropped off the map.
No.
Right? Like these races seem like he was a little bit lower because he was in really tough races. Maybe his first couple starts of the year getting going, or maybe, the end of the year last year and then the first start of the year this year. You can make some excuses for those two. Yeah, he's got a shot in here and he's going to be much better value for you. And Matt, something that you were pointing out to us yesterday, and I just wanted to pull this up. I know you'll do a good job of explaining and even diving more into this if you want to share this on your own later. But this is like a chart that you put together to show people or just to kind of remind yourself when you're building stable dual lineups what we're kind of looking for here?
Yeah, so it's a chart, and I'll absolutely share on social media, but it basically shows you the odds and how much you have to pay for a horse on Stable Duel. And then what I do is I calculate how much of your budget does that cost eat up. The easiest example is, of course, a 6-to-1 horse is $5,000. That's 10% of your budget. Okay.
Yep.
Then I make the assumption of for a winning stable, you typically need 350 points. If you finish with 350, you're probably going to finish in the money. You may not get first, but you're going to finish in the money. And then I go, okay, so based upon the fact that we've spent in this example of $6,000 or 6-to-1 horse for $5,000, 10% of your budget. Well, what is 10% of the points needed in a winning stable? Well, 350, 10%, 35. So if you can, which is a second place finish. So if you can get a second place finish or better out of a 6-to-1 horse, that means you're staying on track basically.
Mm-hmm.
And you're kind of either staying on track or improving if you're doing if it wins. One of the things that really becomes obvious is that when you start getting into these 1-to-5, 2-to-5, 3-to-5, even 4-to-5 horses,
Well, about 7-to-5 is kind of like your break-even point.
yes,
Right?
you really need to. I mean, you're not getting the point return on investment that you really need, and so. Yes, people will go, well, yeah, but it's the most logical winner. Might very well be the most logical winner, but what is it preventing you from doing on the rest of the card by spending up that much? And I think it's just always something to keep in mind, and it's okay. And the other thing is, when you go much further down this list, you realize that basically from 10-to-1 down,
all you got to do is pick up a fifth.
If you just get fifth, you're on track, and you're going to be fine. And so that's one of those things where I think sometimes, when we give out picks, we love giving out winners. But a lot of times when a 10-to-1 horse runs third, that's a win.
You're on par.
You're actually ahead of the schedule. You're ahead of your investments for that. So it's just something I put together, and that kind of helps me keep in mind, like, should I really spend that much for this horse? Or is this horse really a good value play? If I think this horse is going to run second, this horse is 4-to-1. That's probably not a really good value if I think this horse is not going to do any better than second. But going back to Ascot for a second, I will say I'll give you one other, because Broome is kind of that middle tier, that $6,000 horse. I'll give you one long shot, which is 12-to-1, which is the number 6, Mostadov. Mostadov. And I'm sure the Brits pronounce it differently.
Right. Yeah.
And so
they're making fun of you right now for sure.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so, which is fine. I'm not even going to try a British accent, but yeah, it's, they're right. Whatever it is. But the number 6 horse is trained by John Gosden, jockeyed by James Crowley. Again, strong connections. Anybody who pays attention to, British racing, John Gosden, one of the best. And so you like that. This is a horse that is 6 for 8 winning lifetime, has 2 grade 3s or group 3s under his belt from a resume. The biggest question is distance, okay? This horse is stepping up to 1.5 miles. This horse had been running at 1.25 miles. All right. Stepped up to 1 mile and, it kind of weakened a little bit last time out at a 10 furlong effort. That said, the pedigree would suggest this horse can run for days. You got Franco and Galileo up top. You got a dam from Dabawi underneath. This horse should be just fine running, for that 12 furlongs. That should not be an issue. If he can handle the distance, this horse has raw speed and raw talent and raw ability that you are seeing getting better and better and better each time out. So I think at 12-to-1, and this is one where if you go, listen, I don't know about Broome, I'm gonna put my money on Hurricane Lane. Well, then use a horse like this underneath, because at least it balances it out, and it kind of at least keeps you on track a little bit, because now you're only spending between these two a little over $6,000 a horse, and you're not that far over budget to be able to afford some other nice horses on your card. So,
Nice.
I think Mostadov is an interesting horse in the spot, and just like I said, if you can get the distance, I really like the value here.
So race 1 at Ascot is official. The 13 Meditate won, and
nice.
the 12 Maj finished second. Those are my top. I used 2 in that race. Those 2. And
Oh,
they ran,
nice.
And they ran 1-2. So a nice way to start.
It's funny. I used Meditate in all 3 of my stables. So
Yeah, so
that
good.
worked out
Great
nicely.
great way to start for us.
And of course, we talk about all the value, and then the 2 favorites win the
right off the bat. Well, what's funny is that was the race where we didn't give out, so we
Right.
spent up a little bit because
Right.
later on in the
Exactly.
card we have value plays.
That's
so
exactly right.
we need now. That's what you hope. Now we need our value plays, just like what you are showing with the chart.
Yeah.
We got our spend up horses to run well and do what they needed. Now we just need the value plays to finish 4th, 5th, right? Pick us
Yeah.
up some points,
Yeah.
and we'll be in opportunity to probably cash. So
Yeah. And also, what I'll say is, like, don't be afraid at Ascot just to skip a race too. Like, even
Right.
though there's only 7 races, like,
Yeah.
the other day I was in, I think, the $25 contest, and I was in 14th place going into the last race. And I was like, I want to say I was like 15 or 20 points out of 10th. Okay. Now I didn't get to 10th, but here's what happened. I didn't have a horse in the last race. I spent all my bullets by the 6th race. 7th race was this 33 horse field. I said,
everybody starts losing.
I'm not even going to try. I'm not even going to try. And I just said, forget it. 2 things happened. One, I actually moved up a position. I moved up from 14th to 13th, and the difference between me and 10th went from 20 points to 2 points. I almost got there
Yeah.
just by sitting it out
Mhm.
and going, listen, I'm not going to try to throw a dart at a dartboard and potentially take a big negative number, because 28 of the 33 horses are going to
Have a
get you a
shot.
negative number.
I know.
So, I'll hang back. So don't be afraid, even though it's a small card, don't be afraid to sit one out.
So I believe those were your 2 for
Yes,
Ascot.
those are
right.
that's it for Ascot. Yep.
Okay, cool. So let's head over to Monmouth, and then we'll finish up at Santa Anita. Monmouth Park, Matt, has a really good Saturday card. It's the Haskell preview card. So
Mhm.
the Haskell goes, I believe, on July the 23rd in about 5-6 weeks. So
I will
you
be
have a
there.
lot.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Really
Yep,
cool.
I'll be
So
there.
you'll be seeing a lot of these horses that are running
Mhm.
today run back either in the Haskell or other of the undercard stakes races. So we actually have 4 stakes races. The late pick 4 all stakes, 3 of them graded stakes races. I have 2 plays in the late 4 races. Do you have anything earlier on the card?
Oh,
that you
so
wanna
yeah,
look
my
into?
2 are early. So
Okay,
my
cool.
2 are
So-
in 4 and 6. And so
Okay,
that
4
works.
and 6, and then
yeah.
I'll dive into the stakes. Okay, cool. So let's go Monmouth Park race number 4. Tell us who we're looking at here, Matt.
Yeah, so this is a $16,000 maiden claimer, mile and a 16th on the turf, and there's not a lot to love in this field. And this is something that Barry will say a lot of times, like when he talks about some of these maiden claimers. Like, there's not a lot in this field that you go, wow, I'm going to put my money here.
Yeah.
Now, granted, in a 14 horse field, or a 14 race card, I should say, maybe if you're playing Monmouth, you go, I'm skipping this 4th race because there's nothing. I don't feel strong. But what I'll say is, if you're going to play this race, I'd go with a long shot. So I'll go with the number 3, Exculpate. And there's something to like here with Exculpate, which I have to be sure not to say exculpatory, who I just gave out. And so,
Right. Yeah.
So we're all over the Exculpate, exculpatory stuff. But Exculpate is 8-1, $3,000 in stable duel. Like I said, not a lot to love here. That's why I'll settle on this long shot. A couple of things to like. One, perked up on the turf last time out. Went to a new trainer. They went from dirt to turf. From dirt to turf. If you look at this horse's pedigree, turf would seem to be the way to go. The dam actually is a multiple turf winner, and so there's something to suggest there that should be her home. I believe the Tam actually won 3 times on the turf. So like I said, multiple turf winner there underneath, and also Blame, her sire, kind of a sneaky, useful turf sire, and so has actually a pretty decent winning percentage in this spot. So some pedigree there to suggest it. Now, there's a question. This might be her max distance, a mile and a 16th. I think maybe a mile is probably her best distance. But this was not a bad effort last time out. Really showed a little bit more forwardly placed momentum in that last race. Really the first time being in the lead. You could tell she was actually a little surprised to be in the lead. Going around the first turn, the jockey really had to steady her around the first turn because she was going out wide. She was kind of, had a little bit more head of steam going into that first turn than she normally does. And then coming for home, kind of got pinched a little bit coming for home and kind of, just, it wasn't a bad trip, but it could have been better. And like I said, just got kind of pinched and bumped coming down the stretch a little bit. And I think maybe got a little disheartened and lost interest. But I think this horse should be a little bit more forwardly placed with the turf, with the perk up on the new surface. Second time on that new surface is something I usually like to bet because I think the horses typically see a little bit of progression. So I think in a field where I'm not overwhelmed by anybody, and I don't think the favorites are worth spending up at all on, I'd much rather take a shot with an 8-1 horse that's only going to cost you $3,000 and exculpate here trying the turf for the second time.
Like it early on at Monmouth Park while you're building your lineups. It'll only cost you $3,000 to use exculpate. Did you say race 6 was your next one?
Race 6. Yep. Cool. That's maiden special weight. Yeah. And then you got the late pick
13-14. Yeah. I'm gonna hit the last two. I got the bailout double. So.
I love it. I love it.
Okay.
So
tell us about the 6th.
Yeah, the 6th is a $57,000 maiden special weight for 5 furlongs on the dirt for 2-year-olds. Here's the thing: there's 2 Pletcher maidens in here that are going to take all the money. And particularly one because it's owned by Rapoli and it's from Uncle Mo. Yeah. Hey, what Uncle Mo progeny owned by Rapoli just won a big race the other day? Oh, that's right, Mo Donegal. And the Belmont. So, and trained by Todd Pletcher. So, a lot of money is going to go to those Pletcher horses.
Yep.
This is one where, again, Sniper's not here, but he's here in spirit. Sniper always likes going after these types of horses and always likes going after these types of races because they typically like more distance, especially a Pletcher horse. I mean, Pletcher, you rarely see Pletcher really do much with sprint horses. Really, a lot of times his horses are bred for routing. And so a lot of times they need 1 or 2 under the belt, and then they'll run better kind of as they stretch out and get a little bit older. So I'll take a look underneath, and I'll take a look to the outside, and I'll look at number 8, Completed Storm, at 15-1 is only going to cost you $500. And this is a horse that ran once and stumbled badly out of the gate, had a very forgettable beginning. That's a 4.5 furlong race. So if you blow the brake, forget about it. And it's going to be over before it starts. So
he's the 3 in this race that we're watching right here. And you can see he was sort of like moving around before the gate and then just not only was he like head turned when he came out, and then he took like a step or 2 and then stumbled. Bad. It was brutal.
Yeah. It's a brutal start. And so what I'm pleased by is the fact that his trainer, Claudio Gonzalez, is coming right back in a maiden special weight. He's not dropping this horse down. It's not as if we tried at the maiden special weight. Let's drop it down to an easier spot or a maiden claimer or something like that. Like, no, we're going to stick to a maiden special weight. Bring it right back. The other thing is Gonzalez is winning 26% of his maiden second starts. That tells me that he usually knows how to place a horse effectively in that second time out, what changes need to be made potentially to a horse second time out. So I like that quite a bit. I just, if this horse gets a better start, breaking from a little further outside, I just like the way this race kind of sets up for this horse. Also, if you look from a pedigree standpoint, Unified, the sire, really nice sire for 2-year-old progeny. His 2-year-olds are actually winning at a 17% clip. So that's a really strong effort from a horse that, like I said, Gino's pulling it up right now. You look at those juvenile races, you're winning a 17% clip in juveniles. These horses, maybe they're a little bit precocious early. Maybe they're just, a little quick to develop, but whatever the case is, Unified, nice juvenile sire. So I like that. And then the final thing is Gonzalez is teaming up with Angel Rodriguez on this particular mount. When those two team up, 57% winning rate and a $5 plus ROI. Granted, it's a small sample size, but still like it when those two team up. And so I'll take a shot at a 15-1 horse in a maiden special weight 2-year-old race where a lot of things could happen. These races rarely ever run to form or run based on the odds. So like number 8, Completed Storm in this spot.
Completed Storm, 15-1. So what?
$500
in your stable dual lineup.
Almost nothing. Nothing.
Yeah, you don't need a whole lot back there. A 4th place finish, you're fine. 5th place finish, you're fine. That's all you need there. As a really cool late part of this card with graded stakes races. This is a horse who I probably won't be playing in stable duel, but he had a lot of trouble last time out. Keep a eye on Vigilante's Way. Look at how cool this race is too. Yeah. Just from like a contentious race. You've got Alms Whimsical Muse, who won, was really good. Princess Grace was awesome
Love Princess
over the
Grace.
last like 2 years, and she's making her return. Lamista just faced Rougier in Santa Barbara, and then Fluffy Socks was behind Bleecker Street last
This was
time
a
out.
stacked race. I was trying
Yeah.
to find value here, and I was like,
Me too.
Jesus, like
It's a good group. The 12th race is the prep race for the Haskell. Homebrew hasn't done a whole lot wrong. Probably going to be pretty tough. Mr. Jefferson, shout out to Andrew and Darren who were singing this one last
moving
time.
on up,
Moving on up. And electability is going to be a heavy favorite here. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to show those two races. I've actually got plays in the 13th. And shut up and dance with me. We're going to go to the TD dance here, Maddie. Let's pull up the replay from last time out on TD dance. So this was a strong race. We talked about this race at Keeneland. Remember with Camp Hope and with Beacon Hill, we did a preview like the morning before this race. So the horse in here, TD Dance, is the 6. So we can see TD Dance, 6 horse, and a little bit of some traffic kind of bumping around early in the blue here. So light blue silks, trying to figure out where to go. So ends up settling about mid-pack or so, kind of gets, not pushed or squeezed, but just settles in that flight right back there sort of. But right here, now you're in trouble, right? You're kind of like in between. You're in a spot that's not that easy. You end up moving in between. But what ends up being sort of hard about this spot is, again, you're going to sort of run right up on heels. You can't really go to the outside because you're wide. You can't really save ground. So you're at least too deep in between. And he's going to really show some ability late. And I think for him, Matt, and just watching this race overall, that the blinkers really will help him.
Yes.
Because he seemed like a horse who just, I don't know if it was his fault or maybe being in kind of crowding and in some traffic that maybe he was losing focus or having a tough time. But I think with the blinkers coming off, it'll give him a little bit more focus. Now, he's in a great spot here. He looms up like nicely, ominously, and he runs really well. He just kind of has a tough time getting straightened out right here. You'll see like he's leaning and he's trying to get straight, but look at his head. It's completely turned and he's doing Irad was doing whatever he can to get him straight, but he still can't really get straight. He's still running on his long lead and he ends up digging down and just missing in between horses here. If he had just straightened out a tad bit, he would have won that race in between. That was actually a strong race so far. We saw Beacon Hill was in a stakes race on the undercard on Pimlico weekend, in Preakness weekend, just a couple weeks back. In just on numbers and speed figures too. Like he's progressing, he's moving forward. He recently has a 90, 90, 95. Like those stack up with everybody in here. Just off of, and I think because he maybe is not coming out of graded stakes races, people may look and go, oh, okay, so he hasn't been facing as tough of company as the rest. I don't know if that's the case.
Yeah, that Keeneland race was nice. I mean, that's a strong race. That's a really nice field.
Yeah, Camp Hope, who was the winner that day, is like he went on and was in the Louisville. He was only beaten 2 lengths that day. He was actually favored and had a legitimate trouble trip that day. He was dropping out of the Hollywood Derby and he has won a stakes race before. That's a nice horse. Beacon Hill, who we mentioned, he just missed. He was in the dinner party and then he came right back and was in a stakes race at Parks and just missed. This is a nice horse here too. So don't look at that race and think it was much softer than the type of field that he's dealing with here. He's 6-1. So that's right on par for what you need to spend for 5,000 in Stable Duel. And nobody in here, there aren't any monsters. Like Sacred Life is fine. Right.
But to your point, look at those speed figures on Sacred Life. They're right there.
They're the exact same.
Different.
Exact same.
Different. Yeah.
And nobody scares the heck out of you. Nobody's terrifying in this race. The other horse I thought was at least worth mentioning was Hidden Stash. I chased him and followed him a lot since last year. I needed him in a couple of these races at Tampa. He was in the Tampa Bay Derby. Then he went and ran in the Kentucky Derby. Since returning this year, he's been on the grass. Now, look, he lost to, in January, Sherrill Spate.
Yeah, right.
Who we're going to talk about in a minute. He's in the next race. Sherrill Spate came out of this to win the Maker's Mark. So this is a grade 1 winner. And
Mhm.
Cheryl Spate beat Hidden Stash and then won back-to-back graded stakes races after that. So, you look back at Hidden Stash's race and you go, well, that race looks a little bit better on the turf, right? He lost to a horse who came back to win back-to-back graded stakes races. Then he returns again. He finishes third. They try the dirt. And then in his next 2 turf races, he comes back in a stakes. He finishes second with a 94 Beyer speed figure, which is very comparable to the speed figures we've been talking about. And then in his last start, he takes a bad step. And I will say, be weary of that Churchill Downs turf course.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like any horses that recently ran on there, if their figures are a little high or a little low, or if something was weird one way or the other, just don't use only those races as your measuring stick, right? For horses, because there was something funky going on with that turf course.
The best example of that's what happened last weekend, right? So you had the Turf Classic, which our boy got to get that Santine money.
Yep.
But our boy Santine won, which I was thrilled with, but nobody ran a step behind him in
Nope.
that race. They come back in the Manhattan last week at Belmont. Tribhuvan, who finished 5th in that race, ends up just dynamite, just blowing away the field. Adamo, who finished 3rd and was a distance 3rd in that race, comes up for a driving 2nd. I mean, so that, you're right. That Churchill Downs turf was just running kind of odd. And so I would not put too much stock in that form necessarily recently.
Especially for a horse like this who took a bad step on there.
Absolutely.
At some point. So he's 15 to 1. He's not going to cost you a whole lot. So a few options for you in race number 13 here. And we finish up Monmouth Park for Saturday with the Salvatore Mile. It's race number 14. You've got Mind Control, who is a very classy millionaire. You've got Hot Rod Charlie, who's going to be making his first start since the runner-up effort in the Dubai World Cup. Man, I like Hot Rod Charlie a lot, Matt. He is a classy horse, and it shows you how classy he is because in the Dubai World Cup, he looked like he was done and all in early. He was not getting over that track. He was not comfortable. He was like scrubbing, and he just kept working. When everybody stopped, he just kept going. It's unbelievable that he finished second in that race in watching it back early and seeing like how tough it seemed like it was for him to get over that track. Classy horse. I think it does. It tips their hand a little bit that he's in this spot, because I will say this about Doug O'Neill. Like Doug, don't like Doug, whatever. If you know Doug, you probably love Doug because he's just a good dude. But they have no problem running their horses in big spots, right? They never duck competition. No. In an era when we were sort of talking about how everyone kind of ducks competition, O'Neill never does that. He'll run horses. He'll run them back in 2 weeks in a big spot again. He'll run them back. I think it shows you that Hot Rod Charlie shows up here and not like last week in the Met, chasing, or in like a tougher spot, that they have big plans for later on in the year, and that they will be using this as like a starting point, right? A stepping stone. He's not a finished product right now.
And I'll just say to that point, one of the things that I always am a little worried about is horses coming from overseas.
Absolutely. That's a double factor.
That always, I've seen, if you look through past performances of horses, I've seen way too many times where they run overseas and they're not the same horse necessarily when they come back, or it takes them a couple of races to get back.
Or like you said, sometimes ever, other times 2-3 races to get going. And is the Salvatore Mile in June, the end game for this horse? No. He's got 1 or 2 big races coming up in a month, and then he's got the Breeders' Cup. That's what they're worried about for this horse, right? Big races down the line. Maybe the pegs, those types of races are the ones they're worried about. So does he probably still win this race? Yeah. Right. Is he probably classy enough to where like his B- game is better than the rest of this field? Yeah, probably. And he likes Monmouth. He won. He crossed the wire first over this track. It was in the Haskell. He got
hold ball tickets.
Nonetheless, tons of respect for Hot Rod Charlie. Really nice horse. Really cool horse. can't play him in stable duel though. No shot. Like I can't spend up that much for a horse off of the layoff coming from back from overseas, like you said, with some holes that we can poke in him. The one thing that I thought was bizarre, maybe we find out why Cheryl Spate's in this race. I don't know why Cheryl Spate's in this race. Cheryl Spate is a grade 1 winner on the turf who beat the horse who's favored in the poker at Belmont. And you'd think he would at least be favored or second choice or a top betting choice in that race. In any grade 1 race that he went on the turf and ran in, he'd be a major player.
I don't understand this. I don't understand
Me
Tax
neither.
as well, because Tax
Yeah.
we didn't even talk about, but Tax is making his return to the ring, return to the
Like,
track.
Let me
talk
like for Tax at least, let me say Tax at 6 years old,
sure,
off of a long layoff,
sure,
and maybe it's like a total take a shot,
sure,
right?
Sure.
And so it's
Yeah.
like, hey, you know what? He's sort of a grinder. Let's put him on the turf. If he shows that he likes it at all, we can come back and run him in the United Nations in a month and go long on the turf and he can grind. And if he doesn't, we'll just retire him. It's like a total take a swing, so I can at least understand. I agree with you. It's not what I would do.
Right.
I can in my head, like talk myself into it.
Sure.
With this horse, it's like,
Yeah.
he's in incredible form right now.
Right.
On the turf. Like really great turf form. Even his last day for effort, which doesn't look as good, he was 4th in a grade 1 where we said that course was maybe a little bit funky.
Right. And that race has come back. The 3rd and 5th place finishers finished 1-2 at the grade 1 Manhattan last week.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't like, I don't get it. And it's not as if, because sometimes you'll see, and this happens more on the undercard, where trainers will switch surfaces because there's just not a good spot to run that horse in on that surface in some instances. You just outlined like 3 other races this horse could run in
And
easily
would be
right now. And
there's one on the undercard here
exactly.
that we just looked at. Yeah.
So I don't understand why they're putting this horse here. So like you said, maybe afterwards we'll see. I don't know.
What
I don't
Rich
know.
Perloff calls it on TVG. I love Rich. Rich does a really fantastic job handicapping the races over there, Professor Perloff. He would call it like the dunce cap. It was like one of his angles, and it was so funny. He would talk about it. He's like, if there is any reason why after the race I'm going to be looking back and like feeling really, really stupid about not having put that horse in, it's the dunce cap angle. I don't want to be sitting there wearing it afterwards. And if that, like, this is going to be one of those where afterwards we're going to be like, none of this made sense. And if this horse wins, that's like, it's so bizarre. It's going to be like, how did this happen? The horse who I'm going to actually play in stable duel is Helium.
Makes a lot of sense.
He's 8-1 on the morning line. He's only going to cost you 3,000. Is he quite as classy as Hot Rod Charlie? No. But here's what's interesting about Helium. So his dirt form is pretty good. Helium hasn't done a whole lot wrong, right? The Derby race is really his only poor performance.
Yep.
And he was off from June to August. Both of those races in June and August of 2021, they were okay. He was shorter prices. He actually lost to Exculpatory in there.
Mm-hmm.
Comes back in May of this year off of a long layoff. Sort of needs the race. Finishes second. He runs exactly how you would think a horse would run off the bench on May the 1st.
Yeah.
Big field, kind of forwardly placed, moves to the lead, takes the lead, gets a little bit short, tires late, finishes second. Comes back in his second start on May the 20th, second start off the bench on May the 22nd. And he was second, kind of sitting nicely. And he kind of moves to the lead, but Skywire goes by him.
Right.
And he kind of, after Skywire passed him, he sort of continued on and actually ran pretty well. And while his speed figures aren't all that crazy or scary this year, Skywire is a multiple graded stakes winner.
Yeah.
So it's not as if he was in a soft spot. And just overall, I know that this isn't like rocket science, or this isn't like I don't have the complete numbers to back this up, but just overall, synthetic speed figures are always a little bit lower
Yep.
than on the dirt. Like you just are always in graded stakes races, like in classy situations, because horses don't run as like off the page fast on the synthetic as they do on the dirt. So the figures just don't get as high. So I don't ever really, when horses come from Woodbine or Turfway or Golden Gate and they've run well on the synthetic and their figures are a little low, I don't really worry about it all too much because I just sort of play that in my head that the speed figures and the times are probably a tad slower because of that. So I think it's a good spot for him.
Yeah,
You know?
and to your point, you look what happened that the first, first time he goes from synthetic to dirt, you see a 9-point increase. To your point about what happens early on with a horse. So when they switch surfaces from synthetic to dirt, I should say. I liked Helium as well. I think he's kind of the logical place
Stable
to
dual
go
play,
in this
right?
race. Yeah, I think he's the logical stable dual play in the spot. So I really like that you identified him there.
Yeah, we talked through a few horses in here, because Hot Rod Charlie, I can't play. Mind Control, he's just kind of too much of a wild card for me.
And he's still not, he's no value. At
only
3 to 1,
$1.
$8,000. I mean, that's,
I think for him, the plan has got to be to try to send, right?
Right.
I don't think you want to sit behind Hot Rod Charlie. I think
No.
you want to try to go get in front of him. So then there are maybe versions of this race where he's going. Hot Rod Charlie's a little bit fresh and keyed up, but I don't know if Mike is going to want to battle, but he's still going to be, close up there.
Right.
And then maybe Helium, can kind of sit right behind them and sit third, because I don't think he's quite as fast as those two. So he can kind of just lope along and pick up some pieces. It feels like after those two, the next tier of horses is him and Fat Man. And I kind of like his form a little bit better right now than Fat Man, who just doesn't seem like he's in the greatest of form. So
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be like the next grouping there on Saturday. A big day out at Monmouth. Major contest there. Matt, I'm going to pull up Santa Anita. Do me a favor if you can. Pull up real quick just to remind the folks what are the different options that we can play on Saturday over at Monmouth Park.
Hold on 1 second. Yeah. Let me get that up
let
for
everyone know, because I know that in talking with Bree, she was like, Monmouth this weekend. Let's pump that thing up. We want to have some big games out there.
So we have if we have a $2 game on Saturday with a limit of 2 entries, but then we also have a $60 top 10 game, $3,000 pool pot, limit of 3 entries. But that $60 Monmouth Stakes Day game, top 10, nice payouts there when they do the top 10 because they just keep everything consolidated.
Yeah.
And that's a nice way to pay out. And even the small dollar games are really nice like that. So Monmouth, $2 or $60. So no matter what your budget, you can play something on Saturday.
Cool. Let's finish up at Santa Anita. I'm going to dish out 2 plays for Santa Anita for Saturday. We'll go in races 1 and race 10. So we'll start things out for you. Going 1 mile and 1/8 on the turf course here. We've got maiden special weights. I'm going to look to the number 6 Irish Prophet. So another one of these horses, Matt, where I love being able to go race by race and just talk it through and see how it makes sense to me. Win or lose, this is going into a test like I've studied awesome for, right? That's how I feel when I find horses that are like this, because I feel like everything makes sense to me. If they're not good enough at the price and the bet, that's fine. But I have a lot of reasoning for this horse, Irish Prophet. So this is the debut. In his debut, he runs in a race where there's no passing. The race is won by Mubtada, who goes gate to wire. The 3rd place finisher is Trainer Please. Trainer Please comes out of that race to win his next start and then finishes 3rd against Winners. So actually 2 pretty good races in a row. In the race that Trainer Please comes back to win his next start was against Irish Prophet. And what I like is that Irish Prophet showed good improvement from start 1 to start 2. He showed a lot more positional early speed. He was really close and right up on it. He actually had a little bit of trouble at the start also. That race has come back live. The 3rd place finisher out of that race came back to win and then finished 3rd against Winners. So 2 good races in a row for Lansdowne. You look at Magic in the Moonlight. Everybody's dancing in the moonlight. He went over to Parks and won. So he is another horse who comes out of that race a next out winner. So 2 next out winners from the second race, and that race on turf. So if we're just playing Irish Prophet off the April 10th race, he's a player, right?
Absolutely.
Like the 4th place finish on the turf, not beating a whole heck of a lot, showed major improvement there. All he has to do is take one more step forward. Now, what sort of like muddies up his form a little bit is he tries the dirt in his next start.
Yeah.
And he actually runs into a really good group again.
Yeah.
Hopper, shout out to Stranger Things that everyone's watching right now. Hopper wins the Affirmed in his next start.
Yep.
The grade 3 Affirmed, and earns a 95 buyer speed figure in doing it. Heck, even the 3rd place finisher, Pioneering Prophet, he won a maiden $100,000 claimer, and then he actually tried the Affirmed and took a shot in that race. So if you just look at the 3 races this horse exits, they're all really tough races. They've all come back extremely live. The only race that's like a really poor performance was in his debut when he hooked a wire-to-wire winner and he had a slow start.
Yep.
Comes back and shows more speed. And then on the dirt, he just runs into a couple horses that might be a little bit better. Now he returns to the turf and he's 8-1 on the morning line. And if you are comparing him with the other grass horses in here who are going to take a lot of money, like Rio King, who comes in, another one, comes in from Churchill off a good effort on that Churchill turf course. Do we want to take a short price on him off of that? I don't know. Maybe something he liked about that turf course. And, again, I'm not sitting here and the only thing I use when I'm handicapping is speed figures. I think if you watch this show, you probably have found that out by now. But for a comparison standpoint, it's always nice to use them as a tool, right? As a measuring stick. Rio King, speed figure 77, he's 3-1. Irish Prophet, speed figure of 73 on the turf, he's 8-1. Like, we're talking the same exact range.
Yep.
Flintmore a little bit better with a couple speed figures, but he's 2-1, is probably going to be 8-5. Everybody else, once you get beyond Flintmore, is in the same exact range.
Yep.
So I like this spot quite a bit for Irish Prophet in race number 1. I'm going to make a win wager on him too if he's anything around like 5-1 or so.
Absolutely.
But I love a horse in race number 10.
Oh,
Matt,
let's hear it.
this is like, this scares me because this is one of those ones where when you're handicapping it, you sort of smile a little, when you're watching. I was like, oh no, this is dangerous. This is dangerous. So we're going a mile on the turf course in race 10 at Santa Anita. And again, if you're not, if you hadn't looked and you're just joining us right now, this is Santa Anita I'm showing you with the 12 races and these big fields. Like, this is actually the same Santa Anita. This isn't like the multiverse version of Santa Anita somewhere else, I like the 6 in here, Kaison, quite a bit. So another one.
Okay.
He's raced 6 times. His first race, he's behind Rombauer. He's beaten a length and a quarter in a race going long on the turf, but it's still a really good effort. He comes back in his second start and he wins, going a mile on the turf. In his third start, he has legitimate trouble in a stakes race behind a pretty nice horse named Tarantino, who came back and was good and was a good, like, early on as a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
Tarantino actually went over to Gulfstream Park and won one of those prep races at Gulfstream, and he was sort of he was second in the Holy Bull there, and then he was 4th in the Fountain of Youth. He won the race at like a first level allowance race before the Holy Bull, and a lot of people were excited about him down here. So that was early on for him. He comes back in the grade 3 Cecil DeMille. He runs a really good second. So like the first 4 races of his career all make sense. All are really good. They're all races going long on the turf, and he's got a win, a second, a 4th close up in a stakes, and a 4th close up behind a horse who goes on to win the Preakness.
Yep.
He's gone from November of 2020 to March of 2022. So he shows back up in March, and that's the only time he ever went short. So to me, that's a total signal that they're using that as a prep,
Totally.
right? This is a horse whose best races have always been going long. Now he's gone for a year and a half.
Yep.
We got to bring him back. We're probably not expecting him to win first time out of the box, right? So let's just get him going 6 furlongs. Let's get that race under his belt. Let's get a good prep for him. It's a fine effort. He's beaten 3 lengths or so. They do exactly what they wanted him to do. He gets some good conditioning, some good fitness. Then on May the 7th is the race where he comes back and they stretch him back out. They're going to go a mile and an eighth. He's the number 7 in here that we're going to watch. And to say he had a brutal trip in here would be kind. So he's got kind of crowded at the start, right off the bat, right? So right off the bat, you're sort of crowded at the start. And then he's going to move down towards the inside here. And he's going to sort of settle, 6th or so. It's not a bad, he's in the mix early. He's not way out of it. You can just sort of tell the way he's running, though. He was kind of in between horses. He's got this horse to his outside, like he's live, but he's kind of jumpy.
Yeah.
Like he's just kind of hopping around a little bit. He wants to go a little bit more. So he's right here in this in-between spot. He's in like the, about 4 lengths behind in about 5th or 6th. And now he starts moving right up into contention. But the problem, he's got a horse surrounding him on the outside and on the inside, and then he can't run right up onto the heels of the 4. Constitutional Affair. So he's in between horses. You're going to see him start to run right up behind the 4 here. He can't get to the outside. He's stuck. He's the 7. So he's 4th right here. He's traveling really, really well. He's got nowhere to go. He wants to go and make this early move. He's just got to tap on the brakes. He's absolutely surrounded. He's just waiting. He's waiting, Matt. Find a way through for Kaizon. Nowhere to go. Kaizon.
Yep.
And
Now
he's completely blocked. And now it's even worse because it all surrounds him. And he just has to completely stand up.
Yep.
Can't go down to the inside because the 2's still right there. Can't go in between. Look, he's just wrapping right up on this horse as everybody flies right by. I mean,
that's a tough one.
Never got a chance to run at all. And now he's going to be making his 3rd start off the long layoff. Also, that was a first level allowance race. He's dropping in class.
Mm-hmm.
If he came back at the same level, I would play him off of that trouble trip. Not only is he's dropping in class, but he's dropping in class out of a race that has come back very, very live. The runner-up, Carmelita's Man, won a $100,000 Calbred Stakes race in his next start. The winner, Shadow Sphinx, he came back to win another first level allowance in his next start. So horse who everything makes sense for him. He's now going to go 3rd start off the form cycle, 3rd start off the long layoff, exits a tougher live race and had a brutal trip. Again, when we're just comparing the speed figures, even in that race where he had a bunch of trouble, didn't really run he didn't finish well because he couldn't finish. Yeah. He got an 83 Beyer speed figure. Like, look at Liberal, who's next door, who's at 7-2. He's coming off a race where he got an 83 Beyer speed figure. Like, that's right in the range with all of the top players in here. Moody Jim's a little bit higher, not much. No. Like, he's coming off of races where he's in the low middle 80s, and this horse has upside with that trouble. I like this horse quite a bit. If he's anything over, I had him like 4-1 off the trouble. So if he's in that range, 4 or above, I'll make a win wager. And what's nice for Stable Duel, 3,000. Only going to cost us.
Great play, great value play. I love that, Gino. That's that was painful to watch. That like last 3 furlongs of just that race.
No shot,
nowhere to go, and you're just running up on the heels, and you're closed up on the outside. Yeah, it's tough. You're covered up. So it's just I like that play a lot. And I typically that's one thing that's interesting. I like kind of going after horses like this who took these like really long, like 13, 15, 18-month layoffs. And then usually it isn't just as simple as second start off the bench. A lot of times it is kind of sometimes a third start. And it's, I mean, obviously there were trouble in that second start, but also just getting used to racing again. And so getting used to racing in that trouble and getting used to that and kind of, so I totally get it. Like that play a lot.
Kaizen. So that's the final play for me for Saturday closing weekend at Santa Anita. Also, if you want a little extra help for some of the horse players out there, I believe on Sunday morning, which is closing day at Santa Anita, so they'll have mandatory payouts in all the pools. They'll also have stable duel games. I think I'm going to be helping out Santa Anita doing a preview on the Rainbow Pick 6. So that'll probably be on the Santa Anita YouTube, on Twitter. I'll make sure we share that as I'll start handicapping the Sunday card a little later on today on a really fun day of racing. Like we said, Royal Ascot is underway. That's going to lead right into a lot of these tracks in the U.S. getting started. And we miss our good friend Barry Spears, who's always here with us, but shout out to Barry. Hope he's having fun. And Matt, I missed you guys last week. It's always so much fun checking in every week with you and with Barry, talking some races, having some fun with my buddies. And you were pointing out how just the last year and a half have been a blast, lots of growth.
Oh yeah.
You're doing really great with a lot of your content. We had a lot of fun coming off the heels of the Triple Crown races where we had fun with those fantasy drafts too.
So yeah.
Big thank you to everyone out there who watches the content, watches some of the videos, reads some of the articles that you post, listens to the podcast there. We'll be here with you and talking Stable Duel, getting you all set up. I'm excited. I was just talking to Bree Mott the other day, and she is returning she was over at Royal Ascot, and Bree's been traveling all over the place. So she's pumped for what's going to happen, getting ready for the summer. So I'm going to sit down with her next week and talk about a couple things. So that way we'll have even more plans for you guys in these shows in the summer. We'll have more contests to dive into. We'll have really a lot of fun because I know I'm thinking Del Mar will be a big part of Stable Duel summer games. And so I look forward to that. That's when things really get the best in the West Coast.
And in my neck of the woods, a track like Colonial Downs is going to start up here in the summer. And so that's a lot of fun. Jessica Paquette, who we both, know, and, she'll be down there. And, that's always a fun turf course, that Secretariat turf course. So a little bit of a different turf course as well. And you like to hit bombs. I tell you, Colonial Downs is a place where you can hit bombs over the summer. So it's a great course for Stable Duel. It's a great course just for betting as well. So excited about that. Excited about, obviously we got a lot of coming up with the Haskell. You mentioned the Monmouth stuff coming up this summer. So that should be a lot of fun. So a lot of great East and West Coast racing this year.
Great stuff. And Stable Duel has awesome merch too. If you want to get involved in the fun, you've got the Stable Duel shirt there. We got my Stable Duel hat there. Usually when I've got the hat, it's because the fro is starting to get a little much, right? So I probably got to get, I was going to say the hair is just getting a little out of control. So I had to have the hat on to keep me focused this morning. It's like my blinkers, it keeps me straight and focused there.
It's true. And it might be a little late, but if you need a late Father's Day gift, I got Mr. DeSantis. I got my dad a little something from Stable Duel. And I already had to let him know because otherwise he'd be perplexed by why he's getting this. Otherwise he would think that Bree's just sending him stuff.
Yeah, just sending him free swag. So.
Because I could totally see that happening where he's like, oh, Bree's just sending me stuff. I'm like, no, Bree is not just sending you stuff. I'm sending you stuff. But it's a great Father's Day gift, great gift for, the husband in your life or the spouse in your life. It's always a lot of fun stuff for men and women over there on the Stable Duel shop.
Happy Father's Day to Mr. DeSantis.
Yes,
Happy Father's Day. Dude, thank you. And to Mr. Bacola, I'm Gino Nicola Bacola Jr., Gino Nicola Bacola Sr., the man who taught me all of this stuff, all of my bad habits. That was my dad. All the bad stuff, all the good stuff was mom. That was Mrs. Bacola. So shout out to all the dads out there. Hope you guys have a fun weekend and hope everyone makes some money. Maddie, we'll be back next week. And we'll be back next week probably at our normal time of 10 a.m. Eastern time, 7 a.m. Pacific time. It just worked out this week. Figured might as well go a little early. We can remind people about the Royal Ascot contest, dish out a couple plays for them. So thank you so much, buddy. I hope you have an awesome rest of your day. Good luck to everyone out there. Thanks so much for hanging out. Remember, at Stable Duel, there are a lot of opportunities where you can even play for free. So go download the app. It doesn't cost you anything. You can play in free games all the time. We'll be here with you every Friday to give you some best bets, to remind you of some of the big games to get into, and you get to hear the soothing sounds of Joey Cleveland.
Better. You want to spread your pony on